Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
So, a lot's happened in 4 short weeks. Since the momentous decision to leave the EU, we now have a new Prime Minister with a new agenda. The dust has started to settle, and across the city, people are working out just what Brexit will actually mean for London. For many, it's an opportunity to forge a new relationship with the rest of the world. But today, there were also a number of warnings over what the next few years could mean for our economy. One report claims the capital could lose out on investment and calls for measures like a special London work visa to protect our economy. With more details, here's our political editor, Tim Donovan.
8 new apartments taking shape, 1 definitely sold, 4 close to completion. But one sale now not so definite, with the buyer, who's a banker, facing possible Brexit relocation. There's certainly nervousness in the property market.
We've had the impact on professional investors who we've seen completely pulling out the market because of the uncertainty. Then you've got the mum and pop buy-to-let investors. Again, they're putting their plans on hold because they're nervous that if they buy now, things might drop, and actually that affects their rent and the return that they're going to get.
And if residential as well as the commercial property market dries up, it has all kinds of implications. The think tank Centre for London says it could slow transport infrastructure projects, which are dependent on developer contributions. Economists say it's the overall uncertainty which has impacts.
One is a delay in investment. Second one is in confidence, consumer confidence, business confidence. You can see this being slightly eroded. Both of these factors will have a depressing effect on economic activity, at least in the short term.
He says there are some signs that skilled EU workers are already hesitating now about taking jobs in London. In construction, 25% of workers are from the EU, highlighting the skills gap which this developer is already addressing with an academy for local apprentices.
The heightened uncertainty as regards the potential for overseas workers to work in London means that things like the National Skills Academy become increasingly important to ensure that we work with local people to upskill them, to make sure we can deliver the homes that London needs.
But could some kind of special arrangements, like a London-specific work permit or visa, be the answer?
A visa that applies for only part of the country at first sight is very difficult because the borders we have are hardly solid. People work and live in different parts of the country, and indeed there are many workers who might work part of the time in London and part of the time not in London. But given Brexit, we've got to look at things that previously were thought were not doable, and this is one of them.
But what did 4 out of 10 Londoners voting to leave say about social cohesion? Some think it was about much more than immigration.
A lot of areas that have large enough proportion of migrants, non-EU migrants from the old Commonwealth, actually voted to leave. Yet we've got others where communities voted to remain. So it's a combination of poverty, inequality, where things have changed far too rapidly, and the discomfort that's caused.
Very early days, and few are predicting with any certainty how the demolition now proceeds and the reconstruction is going to go. Tim Donovan, BBC London News.
Our arms are open, our doors are open. That's the message from the Lord Mayor of Frankfurt to London's businesses who may be reviewing their future with the UK heading out of Europe. Our political correspondent Carl Mercer joins us now from Frankfurt. And Carl, I gather there's a lot more interest from London in making the move.
Yeah, that's right. We're here at Römerberg, which is the heart of historic Frankfurt, and behind us is the rather impressive Frankfurt City Hall. And as you say, why are we here? Well, because some firms in London, are they thinking about relocating to another European city in the wake of Brexit? And interestingly, in the last hour or so, we had a call from one of the firms over here who are promoting Frankfurt that we featured in yesterday's film. And they said people in London had seen it and they'd had plenty of interest, all of which I'm sure music to the ears of the people behind me. Frankfurt City Hall is somewhat older than our own, but like the seat of power in London government, support here for the European Union is plain to see. But with Brexit, there was sadness here, but also a hint of an opportunity. The day after Brexit, we're told the Lord Mayor of Frankfurt went to a business meeting. At it, people stood up and clapped and cheered, and they said, here's the real winner from Brexit. So we went to see him to say, are you feeling that chipper? And have you got London in your sights? He was, and he has.
The doors and the arms are open, and you can work here and you can feel well. We now have in Frankfurt like 400 Chinese companies. We have like 800 Turkish companies, 1,000 companies from the United States. Only the rate of the English companies is quite little, but this will change from my point of view automatically.
In the coming weeks, his team will be visiting London with a clear message.
If you want to become rich, if you want to stay wealthy, you should have at least a dépendance in Frankfurt. If you want to become isolated and see from the binocular perspective what's going on in the world, stay in London and wait what's going on there.
What do we mean by economic strength?
The day after the Brexit vote, a group promoting Frankfurt as a business destination put out this video and staffed an English-speaking hotline.
There was no one jubilating or celebrating on the morning when the results became known. However, we had to prepare for the case, and we were prepared, so we were ready to go. And now we have to make sure that we understand the challenges, and we also have to make sure that we're using the opportunities.
You can be everywhere in 20
Whether
minutes.
it's public transport or not.
This group of entrepreneurs represent part of Frankfurt's equivalent of London's tech city. Felix Schäfker borrowed the idea from us.
Basically, when saying goodbye, they were like, yeah, well, just check it out. There's something happening in London every night, so there has to be something in Frankfurt. Unfortunately, there wasn't by then. So I came up with a funny idea to create like a community to do that.
There are now more than 1,200 firms signed up, so is it the perfect place for London's financial tech firms to come?
If you look at the Brexit vote, most of the younger people actually wanted to stay in. And I think with fintech companies potentially looking at this market, Frankfurt has a lot of things to offer.
Will it happen in a large scale in the near future? I personally do not think so, because relocating is a hard thing to do and a hard decision to take.
This is a multinational city that has a perfect culture, perfect working conditions, and much shorter commuting ways than London.
In London, it's FinTech Week, a gathering of financial technology firms, a statement of strength, if you like, about London's position.
London is still London. London is still king or queen, however you want to see it. But there's still a lot of things that are to offer, and I think once we sort out the uncertainty, I think you'll start to see, some people might fall off, but others might come in as well because of the new systems that are put in place. So I think we're ready for a fight, and I think we'll see it happen in the next year or so.
Game on then. Frankfurt, just one city looking to poach a bit of London talent. Yeah, as you can see, plenty of challenges for London ahead, and their challenges our own City Hall is taking very seriously. The Mayor, Sadiq Khan, meeting with the new Chancellor, Philip Hammond, today, and pushing London's case, saying we need more powers here in London to keep some of the money that we raise in the capital, to try and tackle some of that uncertainty ahead. But London has to be very aware that the rest of Europe, cities like here in Frankfurt, are already on manoeuvres.
Thank you, Carl. Our political correspondent, Carl Mercer in Frankfurt. Of course, no one can really say with certainty what will happen over the coming months and years. We've heard plenty of concerned voices about Brexit. Let's hear now from someone extremely bullish about the future. Earlier, I spoke to the Wokingham MP John Redwood, a leading advocate for Brexit, and began by asking him, given how much London relies on some 600,000 EU workers, wouldn't London's economy suffer when freedom of movement is removed?
We're not talking about anyone having to leave. We're talking about a control on the numbers in future, because whilst it's great that we've got lots of interesting and energetic people living here, and they are all very welcome, there does need to be some control, because you can undermine the very success of London if you allow too many people to come in.
But in the meantime, of course, there is uncertainty. You've got cities like Frankfurt and Paris rolling out the red carpet, enticing people.
Well, you say business doesn't like uncertainty. Some big businesses don't like uncertainty because they're doing rather well under the current system. Other businesses, challenger businesses, quite like a bit of change because it gives them an opportunity. But yes, we want to reduce the period of doubt about government policy and our relationship with the EU. Speed would be great because it would be nice for us all to get on with the new world where the United Kingdom makes her own laws, spends her own money and makes her own decisions.
And in the new world, or on the way to the new world, what about the idea of a separate London sort of work permit, a visa system to reflect how different London is?
Well, I think what we'd like to see from the Vote Leave campaign is a system that controls access to work and benefits, doesn't stop freedom of movement for tourists and family visitors and all that kind of thing. We don't want armed borders, but we do want to be able to control the numbers of people coming to work here and settle here. And within a work permit system, then obviously it will be up to the government of the day and the parliament of the day to decide how many people we should invite in and what skills they should have, what kind of things it'd be best for them to do. Because we don't want to create a skills shortage. If there are talented people on the continent of Europe who can help us, they're very welcome. But what we also don't want to do is to drive down bottom end wages anymore. We think they're a bit low and we'd like to get them up.
Are you just extremely optimistic, or are all these sort of experts, respected institutions, are they just wrong?
Well, we know they're wrong because they're already changing their mind in a very dramatic way. Let's take the IMF, who was quoted to us in the campaign. And they said we were going to go into recession and the UK was going to do particularly badly. And they revised all those forecasts this week.
So the Mayor Sadiq Khan, when he sort of says, if we don't have, access to a single market, there is a danger that people and businesses will go to other European cities. He's just wrong?
Because it's complete nonsense. I mean, the whole world has access to the single market. China and America trade huge quantities daily with the single market without being in the single market and without having to pay contributions or accept freedom of movement with it.
So the man who leads this city is just plain wrong?
Yes, absolutely. It's not unknown.
MP John Redwood speaking to me earlier. Turning now to voters, what about them? More than 1 million Londoners chose Leave, and those numbers increase the further you travel out of the capital. So we sent Alex Bushell on a road trip to find out how Brexit supporters are feeling 4 weeks on.
Was a vote for Brexit a vote for a brave, bold new Britain? Or rather, a false start? Harking back to a nostalgic view of Blighty that never really existed. Either way, the Westminster bubble has truly burst. London overall voted to remain, yes, but 1.5 million of us voted to leave. That's a lot of Londoners. A month on, I'm on a road trip to find out why, and if they would vote that way again, and whether this was simply, as some claim, a white working class protest vote. This is Newham. Just 16% of its residents identify as white British. That's the lowest anywhere in the country. The borough did vote Remain, but only by the smallest of margins, just 6,000 votes. So why did so many here in such a diverse community vote to leave?
As Brexiteers, the vote was not for Little England.
Mayor wanted out of Europe. He also wanted out of Iran. He arrived here 14 years ago, fleeing persecution. A first-generation immigrant who is fiercely proud to be British and now proud to be out of Europe.
Brexit is a very, very exciting thing that's happened to this country. We were told that the interest rates will change, there will be an emergency budget, cuts, countries will stop trading with us and refuse to trade with us, companies will leave. But now we've seen the opposite. It's an exciting time.
What do you make of those who say at best the Brexit vote was jingoistic, at worst it was outright racism?
It just doesn't make any sense. When it comes to migration, for example, there's no balance. So we want to be able to bring talented doctors from India or engineers from Australia. At the moment, we're not able. All we want is a balance.
And the further you move out of London, the more people voted to leave. From Stratford to Barking and Dagenham, Havering too voted out. A little further into the Essex countryside and you hit Brentwood. This is a wealthy, affluent town with high employment. A high vote to leave as well, 59% of the vote. They're doing well here, so why do they want to risk leaving so badly?
is when you come to try and get your kids into a school and there's not enough places, it affects you then. When you're waiting in A&E in the local hospitals for 4 to 5 hours, it affects you then. When your kids can't get a house, it affects you then. And I think a lot of people just felt the sense of overcrowding and the sense of that having an impact on public services and a pressure on public services which they felt locally.
Although I am now nearing the end of my trip, it was here that UKIP began its referendum campaign, Canvey Island.
No, just your left, sir.
This is the sort of seaside town that's been inundated with camera crews looking for quick Brexit answers. A familiar refrain here, we want our country back. But there is more to it than that. Particularly if you speak to someone like Andrew. He owns 2 successful companies, one here, the other in London. He buys raw materials from the EU, so a weak pound since Brexit is already hurting him in the pocket.
I am expecting it to hit my business. It's going to hit my business, whether it's the guy in the street that can't afford or doesn't know if he's going to be made redundant, wants to hold off on that, whether it's the big commercial. But, you know, as at the moment, commercial business is booming. I can't see it being a problem.
You don't regret Brexit at all then?
Definitely not. Everybody's got their different reasons for getting out. And I just think we've come to the point now where we've made the decision, we need to move forward. We need to move forward together. We need to back that. Otherwise, is it referendum and then a referendum on the referendum and a referendum on the referendum? At what point do we say, that's the decision, let's move forward?
Well, that's it then. I've reached the end of my journey here at the coast at Canvey Island. Well, where better place to end than on the edge of our borders.
By the way, that's not France, it's Kent, and some say that's what Brexit is all about. We've become inward-looking, insular. Well, for those I've spoken to on this trip, the reverse is true. Brexit means Britain should now expand its horizons even more. Alex Bushell, BBC London News.